Welcome back to the Backlot Box Office bonus episode.
There
We
you
just
go.
got, yeah, I know, and more tongue twisters. We might have to change the name up for this here just so we can try to get the words out. Yes, we were just talking about this is the weekend of Dune. But we're not going to be talking about Dune because there just isn't enough about Dune since there's only one other movie in the Dune quote unquote universe of 1984. So we had to do something else, Derek.
Yeah, so as I was mulling over what I wanted to do, I wanted to do something that will kind of tie into, because by the time you're watching this, we'll be well into the week of Halloween. So I was trying to think of a topic, and then it occurred to me, Brian and Casey and Sam are covering Dracula movies all month on the main feed of the Backlot podcast. So a part of me thought, well, let's see how Dracula has fared at the box office over the years. And so I assembled the top 10 list of the all time highest grossing movies starring or featuring Dracula himself. Partially because it's fun, it's seasonal, and also to kind of touch upon a number of movies that won't be covered in the main feed. So if you have ever had any complaints of, well, why didn't they do this? Well, we'll give it, 30, 60, 90 seconds right here to cover you. So,
Yeah, there's a few movies that, as we've been talking about Dracula, that I'm sitting here going, putting the mental checklist going, how am I going to weasel this movie in so we can talk about it later because it's only going to make Casey feel uncomfortable. No. Uh, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's been Dracula month. We're going to be coming on to Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is more or less my introduction into mainstream Dracula, but you know, it was also 92. So,
yeah, yeah.
going into that, we are going to be talking about the top 10 Dracula movies at the box office. Clearly the most financial success when it comes to a Dracula movie is not Bela Lugosi, it's not Christopher Lee, it's not Gary Oldman, it's Adam Sandler. I
Yeah,
never thought I would utter those words to be able to put Gary Oldman, Christopher Lee, and Bela Lugosi in the same context of Adam Sandler, where Adam Sandler's making the most money out of all four of these people. Like, this shouldn't be happening.
no, I mean, obviously, we're playing it fast and loose here, with the rules of this
Very.
list, but this is what actually happened, and so we'll just talk about all three at once here because the top three movies in this list are the first three Hotel Transylvania movies, which all have made, in that 150 to 170 million range, over the past decade. Hotel Transylvania 2 is the top one. Hotel Transylvania 3, aka the summer vacation one, is
Mm-hmm.
number two. And then the original from 2012 is number three. And, you know, as much as people want to give Sandler guff, for everything he does, these
Mm-hmm.
movies were very strong performers. They were fairly liked, all three of them. They come from Genndy Tartakovsky, the Cartoon Network veteran who did like Dexter's Laboratory and Samurai Jack and the original Clone Wars animated shorts prior to the CG version. So they're all
Mm-hmm.
fun movies. And certainly families have come out for them over the years. In fact, when you see these movies on this list, it makes it even more astounding that the next Hotel Transylvania movie is not even going to come to theaters. It's going straight to Amazon Prime Video on January 14th. So it's not even going to have a chance of entering this list.
No, but when I pulled this up and I saw Hotel Transylvania 2, 3, and then the original here, and I thought I was like, yes, Hotel Transylvania 4 is not on this list, but it's also because it's not out yet.
Nope.
And the fact that it took a global pandemic
Yep.
for this movie not to be on this list, because we know that it would have got a theatrical release. Sony would not have sold it to Amazon had it not been for the global pandemic.
Yep.
Sony would have made a crap load of money on it again.
Mm-hmm.
So it took a global pandemic for Hotel Transylvania not to have 4 slots in the top 5 Dracula movies of all time.
Pretty much. So,
I find that fascinating.
yeah.
And then and then we go from Adam Sandler to Dracula adjacent Hugh Jackman, Kate Beckinsale's Van Helsing.
That's
So
right. Yeah, so this was I remember this because this was kind of the summer kickoff movie in 2004, because this came from Stephen Sommers, who did The Mummy and The Mummy Returns, which also kicked off those respective summers. And certainly
Mhm.
they had the high hopes that Van Helsing was going to do exactly that for the Universal Monsters franchise, you know. And you can see it made a lot of money very quickly, but it was also very almost universally despised. So it made a quick buck, but you know, nowadays when people mention Van Helsing, you know, they think of this movie and they think of it as a joke. So there you go.
People think of it as a joke. This is one of those movies that somehow, some way, I'm gonna figure out how we're gonna get it on the main feed just so I can make Casey experience this movie again. I
Uh,
I I personally enjoyed it, but I guess maybe I'm just willing to take a lashing here and there, I guess.
we all
Um,
have our guilty pleasures and stuff
we
like
do.
that. So
I saw this in the theater. I bought it when it came out on I still have my original DVD box set, collector set that has the original Dracula, Wolfman,
Frankenstein,
Frankenstein in there. So, you know, hey, you know,
yeah.
I enjoy Hugh Jackman's Van Helsing, but you know, hey, I know I'm in the minority. Um, we pivot from Hugh Jackman into the Van Helsing of Anthony Hopkins, where we've got Gary Oldman's Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula at $82.5 million. So I think for 1992, this is a pretty good number, to be honest.
Yeah, and I should mention here first off, I mean, these are just the original box office numbers that they made
Hmm.
here. I'm not doing anything to adjust for inflation or anything like that. Because if I did, this would probably get to, I don't know, maybe 160, 170 million in
Yeah,
today's dollars, which is actually pretty amazing. I mean, I remember when this opened, this was opening in like middle of November, so this was after Halloween, but there was certainly a lot of hype for this release that I could recognize even when I was only 8 years old, and it was certainly playing as a powerhouse at the time. I believe, if I did my research correctly, this was the biggest box office hit that Francis Ford Coppola had since Apocalypse Now, which was 13
sure.
years earlier. Of course, he had a lot of bombs in between there for that, but this was considered at the time to be a huge comeback for him, you know, critically as well as financially.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, and frankly, it's a great movie. I was just recently rewatching here the other day, and I realized I'm like, oh, that's so and so. Like, there's so many faces in this movie that all of a sudden I'm like, I'm recognizing all these people. I'm like, oh, I've seen these people in a movie 30 years ago, and I didn't even realize it.
Yeah, and as Brian was hinting at, as of when we're uh, distributing this episode, Bram Stoker's Dracula will be the movie covered on the Backlot 605 main podcast this Wednesday.
Yes,
So
it
listen for
it
that.
it definitely will be. All right, going in from number 5 to number 6. There we go. There we go. Dracula Untold at $56.28 million.
Yeah, so this is one of the early Universal attempts to kickstart that quote unquote dark universe. This is the movie that people kind of forget about because this is the Dracula origin movie starring Luke Evans from October of 2014.
Mhm.
And, you know, when I was looking at these figures again, I mean, $56 million back during then, that's not a bad number all told from a movie that didn't really have any massively
Mar
huge stars. But again, this also did come out like a couple weeks before Halloween, so it did benefit from that. You know, and of course, once The Mummy came out in 2017, the Tom Cruise version, and they started having all that talk about the dark universe, they were already shunting this to the side, as if,
Mhm.
oh, this didn't happen. We're gonna get some new A-lister as Dracula in here. You know, we're gonna start that from scratch. But you know, but this one's kind of been forgotten to the sands of time because of that.
Which is kind of I personally think is kind of a bummer because, you know, myself personally, I've never seen Dracula Untold. I've always wanted to. I hear that in terms of being an origin story of sorts or whatever, Luke Evans is not the bad part of the movie.
No, no,
And
he's
to the
fine.
point, and you know, that if you were going to be doing this dark universe here, that could have been something that you clearly could have tried to incorporate into this Tom Cruise-esque, dark universe, because I'm trying to get my math correctly here. Would we have had Fast and Furious 6 by this point?
Yeah, so Fast and Furious 6 came out the year before this.
Okay, so I mean, he was, he had a name for himself and playing the Shaw brother, in that,
Yeah.
So I
And
mean,
his name was only growing because, a couple years after this he played Gaston in the Beauty and the Beast remake,
hmm
which he certainly got a lot of, cheers and applause for there. So his stature has only certainly grown over the years. I just think, the way that Universal was approaching that dark universe, it was like, we have to have all A-list stars in these movies, like Tom Cruise or Johnny Depp or Russell Crowe, to kick this off. So that
and
was where
clearly
things fell
that
apart.
clearly that worked for them. All right, going from Luke Evans, we go into Wesley Snipes territory. I'm actually thrilled to see this on this list. However, I'm also kind of sad not to see other Blade movies on this list here. But Blade Trinity at number 7, $52.41 million.
Yeah, for all that we kind of remember Blade Trinity for these days, whether it's, Wesley Snipes, refusing to talk to anybody on set, or all the Patton Oswalt stories, complaining about, the production of this movie, or Wesley Snipes just utterly hating Ryan Reynolds on set. We kind of forget the aspect of like, oh yeah, this is the movie where Blade goes up against Dracula,
hmm
played by Dominic Purcell of Prison Break and DC Legends of Tomorrow fame.
Because when I
Um,
because when I think of Dracula, Dominic Purcell is the first person I think of. As much as I love how campy this movie is, in what universe is Dominic Purcell a good Dracula? So going from Blade Trinity, going from the Ryan Reynolds slightly disastrous, hey, we have Triple H in a movie and Parker Posey because what a weird cast. That's one of the reasons why I love how bad this movie is. We go into number 8 with Dracula 2000 at $33.02 million. My fun fact that I always love about Dracula 2000 is this is the movie that helped mainstream Gerard Butler.
yeah, I mean, because this is well before 300. This is even before when he did the Phantom of the Opera. This is the one that kind of kicked him off here with, this. I remember when this came out, Christmas time 2000. This had the Wes Craven presents Dracula 2000
hmm
moniker on it, because Miramax and Dimension back in the day, again, this is right when the Scream franchise was starting to taper off, and they were like, we'll put Wes Craven's name on anything for, a quick buck. So
Yep.
hence we got Gerard Butler as Dracula and Christopher Plummer as Van Helsing. So
Yeah, this was one of those ones where again, it was clearly the cast is why I wanted to see this because again, I nobody knew who Gerard Butler was at this time, you
nope.
know. But yes, you're absolutely correct. Baron von Trapp was Van Helsing.
Yep.
We have for my own personal sake, we have Johnny Lee Miller
Yep.
of Hackers fame. We
Yep.
have Sean
Patrick
uh
Thomas.
yeah, Sean Patrick Thomas, who's just basically coming off Save the Last Dance.
Yep.
Um, one of
Oh,
Dracula's brides is Vitamin C.
yep. I'm also
Uh,
looking at the cast list. We also have Omar Epps,
yep.
Danny Mac. This is just a couple years into That 70s Show run. Nathan Fillion in here as
Mhm.
well, in a smaller role, prior to Firefly, mind you. So, yeah, definitely a lot of talent in that movie. Um, a number very early in their careers before going on to bigger or better things. But yeah, they were all in
Yeah,
here. Perfect time
yeah.
capsule.
Well, when you have a movie literally named Dracula 2000, you pretty much are guaranteeing it's going to be a time capsule movie. Like nobody's going to
Yep.
go back to it unless they're like, well, maybe. Uh, so I'm actually kind of impressed to see this on the list, to be perfectly honest. Like I would not have imagined that this would ever be in anybody's top 10 list.
No, well, that's because this isn't a critical top 10 list. It is a money top 10 list. So there you go.
Touche. So we go from Gerard Butler into
Frank
Christopher
Langella.
Frank Lange, yes, who, as I was saying on the podcast when we were doing this particular one, this is not my kind of Dracula. But for 1979, again, like you said, you did not adjust for inflation.
Nope.
That is amazing. Like this would be easily, if you adjusted for inflation, this is easily within that top five, if not trying to, really delve into that Hotel Transylvania money.
Yeah, I mean, this would definitely have been, like 80, 90, maybe even 100 mil back in the day, But,
Hmm.
and certainly, a lot of ladies, they love their sexy, hot Frank Langella Dracula back then. So there you go.
Well, I mean, somebody's got to do it, I guess. I
Yep.
told people, I told Sam and Casey that if I'm gonna double feature this movie, I can double feature with nothing else other than Masters of the Universe. Because if I'm gonna watch him, I'm gonna watch him be a scary villain like Skeletor.
Yeah.
Such a bad movie. All right, so then we go into number 10, where we go on a lighter note because why not? Dracula Dead and Loving It at $10.77 million in 95, because who better to play Dracula than Leslie Nielsen?
Yeah. So again, this was, as was the case for Mel Brooks at the time, he loved doing parodies of movies. And this landed basically 3 years after Bram Stoker's Dracula, with Leslie Nielsen, of course, in that role. Of course, this was kind of near the end of when Leslie Nielsen kind of had his run of, you know, leading role comedies, and of course, this was also the very last movie to be directed by Mel Brooks. So it is, obviously it wasn't very well received at the time, but it certainly made enough of an impact when it came out during the busy Christmas season in 1995 to
Hmm.
make just enough to get it onto this list. So another, again, I know there's some love for this in our group for this movie back in the day, and at least we get to mention it here among this.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones where maybe it was Mel Brooks going, you know what? I did Dracula, I've done Frankenstein, I've got nothing left in the tank. I'm gonna retire.
Yep.
So,
Oh, although to be fair, I mean that's only from making movies because he still did
right.
a lot of stuff with his Broadway musical versions of his movies and writing stuff, and doing all sorts of voiceovers, including, I believe he's in the Hotel Transylvania sequels. So he has still kept busy.
Oh, right, right. He just he learned when it was time to, rein it in a little bit, unlike, maybe a couple other directors that we've talked about previously, Clint Eastwood, who just doesn't know when just to say when, you know. So, but yes, that is the top 10 Dracula movies at the box office. Again, we've got where we go. There we go. We have Hotel Transylvania 2, then 3, then 1, taking in the first top 3 box office. Van Helsing at number 4, Bram Stoker's Dracula at number 5. We have Dracula Untold at number 6, Blade Trinity at 7, Dracula 2000 at number 8, Dracula from 1979, because we have so many movies just called Dracula, coming number 9, and then Dracula Dead and Loving It, because how better to drop out a top 10 list than with Leslie Nielsen. That has been our top 10 box office movies. Be sure to check us out on the main show, where we have been talking about Dracula all month this month. Bela Lugosi's 1931, Horror Dracula 1958, Dracula 1979, and then we will be doing Bram Stoker's Dracula in 92. Definitely check those out. Next, and also in next month here, we will be doing Ivan Reitman month. So we're gonna have so much fun with that. So many rewatches there. So many movies I already own.
Oh yeah,
All
it'll
right,
be a blast to listen to.
it'll be a blast. So definitely check that out. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterbox HQ. Subscribe to us on Apple, Stitcher, Google, uh, and wow, Amazon, Spotify, YouTube, you name it. Just you can find us there.
Yeah,
Derek.
yeah.
Woo.
come to the Backlot 605 website every Wednesday night for the latest coming soon article, giving you the preview on what's coming to theaters, streaming, VOD, local theatrical events, all that sort of goodness. Support the show on Patreon, where you can listen to bonus episodes, 4 bonus episodes every month, covering many of the movies that we're talking about on the main Backlot box office show. Yeah, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So we will check you out here next week. I don't know what fun stuff Derek has in his up his sleeves for next week here, but I
Neither
guess
do I.
you know what, and frankly, I'm okay with that because I love being able to get the slides and go, "Ooh, that's what we get to talk about."
Yeah.
So,
And
awesome.
if you're watching this, if you have any ideas or anything that you would like to see covered on these
Yes.
bonus shows, be sure to drop a comment down below and we'll take that into account.
Yes. I'm all for that. We'll definitely take those in and spew out some great knowledge because Derek is full of it.
Aw.
Knowledge. All right. Everybody, you all have yourself a good evening, and we will see you guys here next week.
Bye.
Bye.